Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Kazon Radio's Know Your Legends, Unsolved Murders. My name is Matt Jarbo, here to take you through another gory tale of the macabre and unsolved murders of this world of ours. Just want to give you guys a quick note. You can reach us at twitter.com/slash Kazon Radio or facebook.com/slash Kazon Radio, or hell, just go to kazonradio.com. Get a hold of me there. I just wanted to let you guys know to find us, and we're going to get into it right now. The Connecticut River Valley Killers, who we're talking about today, and this is an unidentified serial killer believed to be responsible for a series of similar knife murders, mostly in and around Claremont, New Hampshire, and the Connecticut River Valley, primarily in the 1980s. In the mid-1980s, 3 young women disappeared from the Claremont, New Hampshire area. In 1985 and 1986, the skeletal remains of 2 of the vanished women were recovered within about 1,000 feet of each other in a wooded area of Kellyville, New Hampshire. The condition of the remains made the cause of death difficult to determine, but certain factors pointed to multiple stab wounds. Between the recovery of the first and second bodies, a 36-year-old woman was stabbed to death in a frenzied attack inside her Saxon River home. 10 days later, the remains of a third missing woman were found. Post-mortem examination revealed evidence of multiple stab wounds. At this point, investigators began examining prior homicides in the area and found 2 previous cases, in 1978 and 1971, that further reinforced the presence of a burgeoning serial killer. At the peak of the investigation, and after 2 additional homicides and 1 non-fatal attack, investigators noted similarities in MO, oft-used dump sites, and specific wound patterns that linked many of the murders, suggesting a common perpetrator. Murders. 7 homicides are commonly cited as being conclusively linked to the Connecticut River Valley Killer. On October 24, 1978, 27-year-old Kathy Milliken was photographing birds at the Chandler Brook Wetland Preserve in New London, New Hampshire. The next day, her body, with at least 29 stab wounds, was found yards away from where she was last seen. On July 25, 1981, 37-year-old University of Vermont student Mary Elizabeth Critchley disappeared while hitchhiking. She was last spotted near Interstate 91 at the Massachusetts-Vermont border, as she had been hitchhiking next to Waterbury, Vermont, where she lived with a friend. On August 9, 1981, her body was found in a wooded area off the Unity Sage Road in Unity, New Hampshire. The condition of the body was poor, and the medical examiner was unable to determine a cause of death. 16-year-old nurse aide Bernice Countermanch was last seen with her boyfriend's mother in Claremont on May 30th, 1984. She was thought to have set out to see her boyfriend in Newport by hitchhiking along Route 12. She did not reach her destination and was subsequently reported missing. 2 months later, on July 20th, 1984, 27-year-old Ellen Fried, supervising nurse at Valley Regional Hospital, made a late-night stop to use a payphone outside Leo's Market in Claremont. Fried spoke with her sister for approximately an hour when she suddenly remarked on a strange car she'd observed driving back and forth in the vicinity. She stepped away from the phone briefly to make sure her car's engine would start and then returned. After speaking for a few minutes longer, Fried concluded the call. The next day, Fried failed to report to work and her car was found abandoned on Jarvis Road, just a few miles away from Leo's Market. On July 10, 1985, 27-year-old single mother Ava Morse was seen hitchhiking near the border of Claremont and Charlestown, New Hampshire, on Route 12. This is the last time anyone would see Morse alive, and she too was reported missing. On September 19, 1985, the remains of Ellen Fried were found in a wooded area near the banks of Sugar River in Kellyville, New Hampshire. Post-mortem examination revealed evidence of multiple stab wounds and probable sexual assault. During the afternoon of April 15, 1986, 36-year-old Linda Moore was doing yard work outside her home in Saxons River, Vermont, a short distance from the I-91. That evening, her husband returned home to find his wife's dead body bearing multiple stab wounds. The crime scene suggested a fierce struggle had taken place. Numerous witnesses reported having seen a slightly stocky, dark-haired man with a blue knapsack lingering near Moore's home on the day of the murder. The man was thought to be between 20 and 25 years old, clean-shaven, with a somewhat round face, and wearing dark-rimmed glasses. The following year, a composite sketch was released. 4 days after Moore's murder, a fisherman happened upon the remains of Bernice Countermanch at about 1,000 yards away from where Ellen Fried's remains had been discovered. Forensic examination uncovered evidence of knife wounds to the neck and an injury to the head. 6 days later, the remains of Ava Morse were found by loggers about 500 feet from where Mary Elizabeth Critchley's body had been discovered in 1981. Post-mortem examinations found evidence of knife wounds to Morse's neck. On January 10, 1987, 38-year-old nurse Barbara Agnew was returning from a skiing outing with friends in Stratton, Vermont. That evening, a snowplow driver encountered her green BMW at a northbound I-91 rest stop in Hartford, Virginia. The door was cracked and there was blood on the steering wheel. On March 28, 1987, Agnew's body was found near an apple tree in Heartland. She had been stabbed to death. There was a heavy snowstorm in the area during the night of Agnew's disappearance. She was a mere 10 miles from her home. Her reasons for pulling into the rest stop have been puzzling to investigators. Jane Borowski attack. The killings remained unsolved and had apparently stopped when, in the late evening of August 6, 1988, 22-year-old Jane Borowski, 7 months pregnant, was returning home from a county fair in Keene, New Hampshire, when she stopped at a closed convenience store in West Swayze to purchase cola from a vending machine. Borowski returned to her car and began drinking the beverage when she took notice of a Jeep Wagoneer parked next to her. In the rearview mirror, Borowski then saw the driver of the vehicle walking around the back of her vehicle. He then approached her open window and asked her if the payphone was working, at which time he immediately grabbed her and pulled her from the vehicle. Borowski struggled, and the man proceeded to stab her 27 times before driving away and leaving her to die. Borowski managed to return to her car and drive on Route 32 towards a friend's house for help. As she neared the house, she noticed a vehicle driving in front of her and realized it was her attacker. Borowski finally reached her friend's home, at which the occupants immediately came to her aid. The attacker apparently performed a U-turn and slowly passed by the house as Borowski was tended to before speeding away into the night. Borowski was treated at the hospital, where it was determined that the attack had resulted in a severed jugular vein, 2 collapsed lungs, a kidney laceration, and severed tendons in her knees and thumb. Fortunately, Borowski's baby survived, although not without complications. Borowski's daughter would later be diagnosed with mild cerebral palsy. Borowski was able to provide authorities with a composite sketch and the first 3 characters of the attacker's license plate. Cold case. Despite 2 composite sketches, formation of a task force, assistance from criminal profiler John Pilfin, a handful of local suspects, and an unsolved mystery segment concerning the murders, no arrests were made in the Connecticut River Valley killings, and the case grew cold as the killing ceased after the attack on Borowski. In 1993, Scribner published a book, The Shadow of Death, The Hunt for a Serial Killer, by true crime author Philip E. Ginsberg. Suspects: Delbert Tallman. On May 20th, 1984, 16-year-old Heidi Martin went for a jog in Heartland, Vermont on Martinsville Road. The next day, her body was found in the swampy area behind Heartland Elementary School. She had been raped and stabbed to death. 21-year-old Delbert C. Tallman confessed to the crime and was tried. However, he later recanted his confession and was acquitted. Nearly 3 years later, Barbara Agnew's body would be found approximately a mile from where Martin was discovered. Tallman had resided in Bellow Falls, Springfield, and Windsor, Vermont, as well as Claremont, New Hampshire, the focus of most of the Connecticut River Valley killings. He was convicted in 1996 on 2 counts of lewd and lascivious conduct with a child and is currently serving time in Lake County, Florida, for failure to comply with sex offender registration requirements. Given the circumstances of Martin's murder and the death information related to the arrest and trial of the suspect, some websites cite Martin's death as an unsolved part of the Connecticut River Valley killings. There is, however, no evidence presently available to the public that Tallman was involved in any other case. Michael Nicolau. In 2001, private investigator Lynn Marie Carty was contacted by the mother of Michelle Marie Ashley, a Vermont woman who had been missing since December 1988, along with her 2 children. The woman enlisted Carty to gather information pertaining to the possible whereabouts of her daughter, as well as her 2 grandchildren, whom she believed to be in the company of Ashley's common-law husband, Michael Andrew Nicolau. Michael Nicolau was a Vietnam veteran who had served as a helicopter pilot in the Army. Nicolau had earned 2 Purple Hearts, 2 Silver Stars, and 2 Bronze Stars before being charged in 1970, along with 7 comrades, with strafing civilians while on a reconnaissance mission in the Mekong Delta, Years later, military acquaintances would describe Nicolau as having, on at least one occasion, abandoned his camp to seek hand-to-hand individual combat with the enemy, armed only with a knife, stating that he was going hunting for humans. Murder and attempted murder charges were ultimately dropped, and Nicolau returned home disgraced and bitter, subsequently filing suit against the U.S. Army. During this time and throughout the remainder of his life, Nicolau received treatment from the Veterans Administration for post-traumatic stress disorder. While living in Virginia, Nicolau opened and operated a sex shop called the Pleasure Chest. The store was raided twice, and he and his business partner were charged with selling obscene materials. In one instance, they were convicted, and in the other, there was a mistrial. At the time Nicolau remarked to the Progress, "Evidently the police don't have enough serious robberies, murders, and rapes to occupy their time." It was in Virginia that Nicolau met Michelle Ashley and soon moved after to Holyoke, Massachusetts, where the couple had 2 children, Nick and Joy. Michelle's family, who lived in New England, regarded Michael Nicolau as strange and quiet. As his marriage to Michelle became more troubled, Michelle attempted to leave him, taking her 2 children with her. This prompted Nicolau to pursue Michelle's whereabouts, making contact with her family during this period. Michelle, who told family members that she feared for her life, eventually returned to Nicolau, but expressed intentions to family to leave him for good. In December 1988, Michelle's mother dropped by the home of Michael and Michelle to check on her daughter after weeks of no contact. She found spoiled food in the refrigerator, an abandoned baby book, and the apartment vacant. There was no trace of Michelle, Nicolau, or the 2 children. Shortly after consulting with Michelle's mother in 2001, Cardi was able to obtain Nicolau's contact information through some internet research. She called Nicolau, who was living in Georgia, and he answered. Nicolau initially asked how she had found him and denied knowing anything about the family's whereabouts. Eventually, he stated that Michelle was a slut who had been doing drugs and ran off, abandoning the children. He stated the children were fine, and Cardi confirmed this by reaching Nick the following day, who tearfully described life of this combat traumatized father who had since remarried. By 2005, Nicolau's second wife, Eileen, had also sought to escape him after he'd attacked her. On December 31st of that year, Nicolau tracked down Eileen to her sister's home in Tampa, Florida. Wearing a black suit and tie and carrying a guitar case filled with guns, Nicolau led his wife and stepdaughter, 20-year-old Taryn Bowman, into a bedroom while his sister-in-law fled to summon police. While waiting for the arrival of the SWAT team, Nicolau shot Eileen, Taryn, and himself. Eileen and Michael Nicolau died at the scene. Taryn died at the hospital a short time later. Cardi read about the tragedy in the newspaper and was compelled to investigate Nicolau's past, as well as explore other New England crimes around the time of Michelle's disappearance. It was then that Cardi began reading about the Connecticut River Valley killings and suspected that Nicolau could have been the perpetrator. Among many points of interest to Cardi was that one of Nicolau's ex-wives was a nurse, profession shared with 3 of the Connecticut River Valley victims. While Nicolau's residence in Holyoke was about 90 miles from Claremont, Cardi was able to determine that Michelle had relatives in the area, and a note in the abandoned baby book placed her in 1986 at the same Hanover, New Hampshire hospital from which Barbara Agnew would disappear a short time later. It was also determined that Michael Nicolau owned a Jeep Wagoneer on August 6, 1988, which is consistent with the vehicle described by Jane Borowski. Cardi began communicating with Borowski shortly after Nicolau's murder-suicide. Cardi shared her findings about Nicolau with Borowski. Borowski was shown pictures of Michael Nicolau and expressed that there was some resemblance between him and the man that attacked her. The culmination of Cardi's interactions with Borowski was that Borowski is now convicted that Michael Nicolau was her attacker and, by extension, the Connecticut River Valley Killer. New Hampshire cold case detectives in 2007 stated that they were in the process of examining surviving physical evidence as well as Michael Nicolau's possible connection to the case. To date, no conclusions have been publicly announced, and Nicolau had not been conclusively linked to the crimes of the Connecticut River Valley Killer. It's worth noting that Nicolau's candidacy as a suspect is hampered by the fact that he appeared to be living in Virginia at the time of the Countermanch, Fried, and Morse murders. This is reinforced by the date of his obscenity trial, and likely up to and beyond that time. Furthermore, online sleuths have variously posited Nicolau as being the Colonial Parkway Killer, the Route 29 stalker, the Blue Ridge Parkway rapist, and the murderer of Julianne Williams and Loli Winans at the Shenandoah National Park. There is no physical or compelling circumstantial evidence presently available to the public which factually connects Nicolau to any of the Connecticut River Valley cases or any other case in Vermont or New Hampshire beyond his slight resemblance to some sketches. Gary Westover's deathbed confession. In October 1997, a 46-year-old Grafton, New Hampshire paraplegic named Gary Westover related to his uncle, a retired Grafton Sheriff's Deputy Howard Minnan, that he had a confession. Westover told Minnan that in 1987, 3 buddies picked him up for what was described as a night of partying. Allegedly, they loaded Westover in his wheelchair into the van and set out to Vermont, where they abducted, murdered, and dumped 38-year-old Barbara Agnew, who had long been considered a victim of the Connecticut River Valley Killer. Westover provided the names of the 3 friends, and Minnan recorded them on a piece of scrap paper. Thereafter, Minnan shared Westover's information with his wife, daughter, and law enforcement. Minnan felt, however, that authorities were not interested in his information. Westover died in March 1998. Minnan died in 2006. In August 2006, one of Westover's aunts wrote Anne Agnew, sister of the victim, with the information originally given by Westover to Minnan. Agnew forwarded the letter to Carty, who ran the name of Michael Nicolau by Westover's aunt, who stated that the name sounded familiar. Carter believes that authorities are in possession of the names Westover provided to Minnan, and further speculated that Westover may have become acquainted with Nicolau at an area Veterans Hospital, although none of this has been confirmed, and the Connecticut River Valley killings remain unsolved. Wow. That was fucking crazy, pardon my language. That was pretty crazy. Like, just, the Michael Nicolau thing, I mean, yeah, there's some inconsistencies, but it seems like the only thing that they found that really kind of like holds weight to the situation. I mean, here you got a guy who was hunting people in the woods, human hunting. He killed children, supposedly, or he was like, he was kind of a sexual deviant. He sold obscene materials. His shop was raided. I mean, this guy was not a good character. Although granted, the thing with Westover saying that the name sounded familiar to his family is maybe a little coincidental, but either way, very curious. What are your thoughts? Do you think that Michael Nicolau was the Connecticut Valley, or the Connecticut River Valley Killer? What do you think? What are your thoughts? Hit us up, kzomradio.com, Twitter @kzomradio, Facebook /kzomradio. My name is Matt Jarbo. We'll see you guys next week for another episode of the show. Have a great one. Bye. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of KZOM Radio's Know Your Legends, Unsolved Murders. If you'd like to advertise on this podcast, please visit kzomradio.com for details.